Hello, I'm Ashely, speech language pathologist and owner and operator of Speech Language and Beyond. Hi everybody, I know it's been such a long time since I've done a video. I've been really busy with trying to get some things off the ground. I've had new referrals where I'm fully packed to capacity. That's a blessing. I have new products that I've created and I've been trying to get off the ground, a blog that I've been trying to do, keeping up with the Facebook page, creating my Etsy shop, and trying to add new materials. So I've just been trying to do different things just to keep different revenue sources open and to just really be able to work in all the areas of speech and language that I'm speech pathology or communication disorders that I'm interested in and that I feel like I can do my best in. Okay, so I am really glad to see you all. I'm glad that you all are still watching my videos, that people are still finding them and finding them useful. That means so much to me. I'm appreciative of all the people that are reaching out and asking questions and leaving good comments. I really appreciate it. So let's get started. This video is going to be somewhat of a two-part video. As you can see, I have games in front of me, so I want to talk about those, and then I also want to do a short segment of this video that pertains to auditory processing. Okay, so we will get into that. So because right now my caseload Monday through Thursday is pretty much full to capacity. I see my private caseload mainly in the afternoons, starting between at 3 o'clock up until about 5:45 each day. So that leaves me about 4 to 5 blocks of time, 30-minute segments during that time in the afternoon to be able to see people, and those spots are pretty much filled. I think I may have had maybe 2 or 3 people that have dropped, but I have other people that are waiting to replace those as well. Some of the people that I was seeing in the mornings before I did my disability evaluations, I have now put them in the afternoon spots because school has started back and it's been easier for their schedule. And I'm grateful for that. And so I said all of that to say the children that I'm working with, they're working really hard on their goals, and I feel like I have them at a point now in their therapy where I can draw in their attention. They understand what they're working on. They understand what's expected of them when they are sitting at the table working on some of their therapy goals, or if we're on the floor working on some things. And so because they've been working really hard, and I really want to keep therapy as something that they're interested in coming to every day, not something that they see as another extension of school where they're coming and they're being expected to do hard things and there's never anything done to be able to reward them. And so I went and I purchased these games from Target and from Walmart. Thought that I would show you a mini haul of games that I have, and I'm pretty sure these are games that you have as well, and I would love to hear your ideas about what you do to incorporate games into therapy. If you actually turn these games into an actual therapy activity. What I've been doing at this point, the only one that I've actually used, because I just purchased these within the past 2 days, so the only one I've actually used so far is the Cootie Bug game, and that's pretty much where they roll the die and they're able to create a silly looking bug based on whatever shows up on the dice that they're using. And so that's the only one that I've used so far. None of these games outside of Hi-Ho Cheerio have I ever even done before. So it's kind of like my first time experience with using them and incorporating them, you know, in therapy. So far, like I said, I have Hasbro Hi-Ho Cheerio. I think it is a different version of the original one. I think the original version that I do have, it just uses the cherries and you filling up the tree with the cherries or something like that. But on this one, you actually have a basket, and it has 10 cherries, 10 blueberries, apples, and a spinner. And whoever is able to fill up their basket first pretty much wins the game. And it pretty much targets, if you just use it as a game alone, it pretty much just targets, you know, counting and numbers. But it's just activity that I use in between therapy activities once they've completed so many targets or so many goals within the session. And of course, like I said, this is the Cutie Bug game, and it's upside down because I opened it that way and I don't want everything to fall out. But it gives you somewhat of a card that has the different parts of the bug's body that you can put together, and then you roll the dice, and whatever it falls on, That's what you use to build the body. The object of the game to get started is that you have to at least roll a head first before you can put a head on, and then once you attach your head to the body of the bug, then you can go ahead and put on whatever else it is that you roll until you've built an entire one. And what I like about it is because they can make the bugs look really silly. They don't necessarily have to match up to the color schemes that's been presented. Yeti and my spaghetti. I've just seen the commercials. I just wanted to try it. I haven't used it yet. It hasn't been open. But I'm pretty much thinking that the object of the game is to get the Yeti to not fall in the bowl of spaghetti. So that's another one that we have. Don't spill the beans. I thought this one was really cute as well. And the object is to make sure that you can get rid of all of your beans first before your component, and to make sure that in the process of you putting your beans on there that they don't fall out on you. And then we have Mr. Bucket. I just remember this game from when I was younger. Not quite sure if I played it, but I just remember the commercial, and I've been seeing it lately. And I'm thinking it's just because the Christmas holiday is around the corner and they're putting these games out here for presents for people to be able to buy, you know, for their children or whatever. And so I think the object of this game is to be the first person to scoop up 3 of the balls that you have in the color that you choose while the bucket is shooting them out, and then you win the game. But these are just some games that I wanted to incorporate as a way to keep my kids interested, to keep the sessions light and fun for them, and to also, you know, reward them for paying attention and being able to work really hard during the session, because I feel like that's really important. Okay, so that's the first thing. Now, the second thing that I wanted to talk to you all about was auditory processing. I have had a number of children come in now having this as a deficit or a goal that we need to work on. But even within my time as being a speech therapist, I never quite understood how much of auditory processing had to do with hearing. I know that we can work on the goals, and some subset goals of auditory processing is auditory memory. So it's like, okay, how much of what you hear are you able to remember and to recall? So in that instance, you would have children, you know, or adults or whoever who's experiencing some type of auditory processing deficits or the auditory processing disorder. They're having difficulty being able to remember information. So you'll have them recall a list of words, a list of objects, numbers, say them forward, say them backwards, that whole type of thing. Another subset of that is auditory integration, auditory segmentation, blending phonemes, and what that has a lot to do with is making sure that, because we know that phonetically, or when we deal with phonology, I guess we could say, phonology is when you recognize that the order in which you place sounds within a word, it can create a new word and it can change the meaning of the word. And so a part of auditory processing is to make sure that people can hear when the sound in a word changes, to make sure that when they hear that change, they're recognizing that that change in that letter is changing the meaning of what they hear, or changing the content of the message that they hear. So it can be, even for therapists, can be really confusing and not really knowing what type of activities you can use to be able to do that. Well, one thing that I think is important from a speech therapist point of view is that I discovered that we cannot give the official auditory processing disorder diagnosis. It has to be given by an audiologist. So once an audiologist gives you that, and then you have a copy of that report to go by, then we are able to work on the goals needed to accomplish the deficits that we find with auditory processing. So that's one thing that I did find that I did not know if we were unable to really give that diagnosis, but it does have to come from an audiologist. I looked it up under at the Ashely website. If you find or know anything different, please share that with me as well. And so I was just trying to come up with, I'm dealing with a child right now that has more difficulty with recalling information, more with her auditory memory. And I was trying to think of, okay, what are some different types of activities of things I already have that I can use to help her be able to accomplish this goal. So one thing that we were kind of doing was working on patterns. So I have these cards that I found, oh God, years ago at a thrift store, and they are called Brainy Babies. So these are Brainy Baby card games, and it's 24 cards, and it's 2 copies of each one, and it contains letters up until from A to F and numbers from 1 to 6, and it does colors red, green, blue, orange, purple, green, and red. And then they have different pictures of babies on the card. So what I decided to do was, you know how sometimes we'll go and look for the pattern activity sheet where it might be dog, cat, dog, and then they have to fill in the rest of the pattern. Well, I was like, okay, let's put that in a physical sense, and I used these cards to be able to do that with. So for example, on this particular card, there is a number 3. It is in an orange oval, and then there's a baby at the bottom of the card that has on a blue hat. Okay, so I would say for this one, you can decide which characteristic of the card you want to call out. So you could use this card for the color, for orange. You can use this card for the fact that the baby has on a blue hat, or you can use it for the number. So in this instance, I'm going to use it for the number. So it'll be 3. Let's find a letter, F. So there's a letter in that one. And let's do another letter, E. Okay? And so 3FE. And so I would put that there and say, this is a pattern. Can you finish this pattern for me? So I would take those cards, the rest of the cards I have left, put them out in front of the child on the table and allow them to find the cards that finish the pattern. Now, the reason why, to me, laying out the deck is important is because now they have to, first of all, remember what is the order of the pattern that I have to fill in, and am I able to isolate and find the right objects or numbers or letters or whatever to finish a pattern among all the different other ones that I see as well. So they have to remember what the pattern is, how do we go and we fill it in, and can I isolate and find those letters and numbers I need to finish a pattern among other letters and numbers and colors and all those things, to isolate it out, because that's how we remember things. Like, we have so many things that we have stored in our mind or stored in our brain, and we have to learn how to isolate the information that's important in order for us to be able to finish a conversation with someone, to be able to follow through on a command or a direction appropriately, and that's what this sets them up for as well. So that's one way of doing that. Another way I kind of thought about, I was redecorating my son's room, and I wanted to replace the lights that I had in his room with a banner. And so I found these little banners here at Michael's, and they come in different, within this sheet, they can be pulled off and attached. So within this pad, we have the orange background with the white polka dots. And then we also have another section where it's striped, so it's orange and white stripes. And then you also have another pattern that's just plain, such as this one. It's just plain, like this. And so I picked up one for green, so you can see it here. Follows that same scheme. And then I picked up one for yellow. So these are ones I had left after I was finished putting up the banners in his room. So I'm like, okay, if we still wanted to do it in a way that was interesting and fun, and just not so much cut and paste and paper and pen, and kind of bring it into a physical sense, you could take off the different sheets here and create a pattern, and then have the child go through and also finish that pattern as well. Okay, so that's another way. So patterns are a good way to work on recalling information or being able to fill in missing information, because you have to remember what you saw and then be able to go in and fill in that information. Okay, so another set of cards that I had where you can also do this same thing if you wanted to create a pattern were the old Memory, the game Memory by Milton Bradley. I have the original cards, and of course they also come in pairs. It's 56 cards, and I think it comes in 28 pairs of pictures, and so you can separate those pairs, and then have the child also create a pattern according to how you would. If you're going to do the pattern, then you wouldn't separate it. You would keep them together, but kind of put them in different order and create the pattern and have them go back and fill that pattern back out. Okay, so patterns are one way. So another way that we normally conquer this as well is by getting them to recall a list of objects or a list of words. Okay, so like a fun way to be able to do that is, and I did this today using the Milton Bradley Memory word cards or picture cards. What I did today was pre-created a list of objects based off these cards. So I separated the pairs, I put them out in different orders in a pile on the table in front of the child. And they were not allowed to touch the pictures. They could look at them, but they were not allowed to touch the pictures. And I would just name out 5. I did a word list of 5 because they were doing good with 4. So I did a word list of 5. And so I picked out 5 objects that were pre-selected earlier before the session, called out the list. And while I was calling it out, they could not touch it. They had to listen and just look over the pictures. Once I called the list out twice, they had to remember what the list was, pull out the pictures that were represented from that list, and put it in the right order. So that's another way to work on auditory memory with doing that as well. And then I went from doing a 5-word list to doing a word list of 6 objects or words, and getting them to also do the same thing. Okay. And you can also do the same thing with the number cards, with the Brainy Baby cards as well. And then, of course, you can do your classic memory game where you turn the pictures over, have them make a match because they have to remember where it is. So these are just some different ways that you can work on auditory memory as far as like recalling information. I will have another video that will be coming soon that's based on blending and segmenting sounds as well that I just created, which is another form of auditory processing that kids have to work on as it pertains to sounds. So I hope that you found this video useful, and if you have a child who is working on auditory processing skills such as recalling word lists or recalling information or filling in the missing information, these are some more fun and creative ways of things that you already have or that you can easily create in order to get them to work on this. So let me know if you've worked on a child that's had this before. What strategies or activities have you used to also target this as well? And I will see you guys in the next video.